Tánaiste, this morning the INMO representative Derek Riley claimed that Tallaght Hospital is unsafe and dangerous. He said, while he had great confidence in the staff, he would not like to be admitted to the accident and emergency units there. He said that the A&E is unfit for purpose due to overcrowding and that the staffing levels are less than they were in 2012. As you know, that's in the same year that HICWA did a report into the unnecessary death of a patient in Tallaght Hospital. And in that report, HICWA stated that frontline staff concerns about staffing issues had to be addressed. The CEO of the hospital, I understand, has denied these claims, but at the same time has agreed that there are 36 patients on trolleys in the A&E unit yesterday. And we know that this has reduced now to 20, but that is by cancelling all elective and day case surgeries. And what's happening in a lot of hospitals now, not only in Tallaght but other hospitals, is that the elective surgery and day care is just being put back and back. Tánaiste, is the government satisfied that patient safety is not being jeopardised in Tallaght Hospital? And are you confident that the 2014 service plan is sufficient to meet the growing demands in the A&E departments across the country?
Thank you, Deputy. Tánaiste.
Well, I'm informed that the CEO of Tallaght Hospital, Mr. David Slevin, has stated that it is not the case that the health of patients is under threat at Tallaght Hospital. I understand that he has provided assurances that the situation is being managed and that the hospital is providing adequate patient care. Tallaght Hospital is experiencing an unprecedented surge in the number of people attending the emergency department. However, the situation continues to improve, and I'm told that there are currently a total of 19 people on trolleys. The hospital is implementing a response plan to actively manage the current pressures with a focus on regular ward rounds to increase the numbers of patients discharged. 30-day case procedures have been cancelled between today and tomorrow, and these patients have been notified. A meeting is to take place with hospital management tomorrow to discuss staff concerns. With regard to staffing issues, the hospital is actively seeking to fill a number of nursing vacancies at present, in particular 3 permanent nursing posts in the emergency department. The Department of Health, the HSE Special Delivery Unit and the INMO all agreed that trolley waits to be an unacceptable feature of the Irish healthcare system, which must be addressed. However, on the year to date, on a national basis, we are now 3.3% ahead of 2013 and 34% ahead of the baseline 2011 trolley count. These percentages are equivalent to 225 and 3,365 fewer patients on trolleys, respectively.
Deputy O'Keefe.
Tánaiste, you seem to be dismissing out of hand the concerns of frontline staff. It would appear that this government doesn't listen to the people at the coalface. Now, we know that this problem is not confined to Tallaght. Galway, there's a crisis. Limerick, Castlebar and many other hospitals. There are 286 patients on trolleys across the country. And despite all the massaging of the figures, the actual facts of the matter are that there was a 2% increase in the number of patients on trolleys last year. And the way they're solving this problem is by sending people messages to say, don't turn up for your elective surgery, don't turn up for the day surgery. And we're getting people time and again ringing every constituency office in the country saying, I've been called 2, 3, 4 times for elective surgery, and the dates keep getting put back. Is that a way to run the hospitals? And what I want to know from you, what is going to be done to deal with this issue, not just put it away into the wards, which is what's happening. They're just putting extra beds into the ward and say, well, they're not on trolleys anymore. But that's not dealing with the issue. And the second thing is, you cannot forever go ahead and just keep putting off elective surgery?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, the government is listening to what is happening at the front line and listening to staff who are working at the front line, and indeed listening to patients and to their families. So let's be clear about this. This is not a problem that is being ignored by government. This is being addressed by government, by the HSE and by hospital management. First of all, I remind you that the numbers on trolleys is significantly down from the time that you and your colleagues had responsibility for it. But that said, that is still not good enough. I don't think any patient should have to overnight on a trolley. I think that the objective should be to get down the waiting time that people have. Now, there is a problem which has arisen in Tallaght, and that is that there is, as I understand it, a spike in the number of people presenting at the accident and emergency department. That may be due to the time of year, but that is happening, and the issue is being addressed, and it's being addressed in the way that I've said, through being addressed on a ward-round basis. There are some elective procedures that are being cancelled in order to deal with the beds issue. The staff is being met, and I understand that the hospital management will be meeting tomorrow to discuss staff concerns. There are issues about the numbers of nursing staff in particular in the emergency department of Tallaght Hospital. Additional staff are being recruited, and the issue is being addressed.
Thank you. Deputy McLennan.
Tánaiste. The Irish people and communities the length and breadth of this state have since Christmas been experiencing an unprecedented weather crisis. This crisis has now become a state of emergency in many areas, including Cork, and should be declared so. Local communities and local authorities are not in a position to respond to the daily devastation and urgently require government support. This support has not been forthcoming. I find it incredible that to date, the Minister for Environment, Community and Local Government, Phil Hogan, has failed to come before this House and inform the Dáil of the action and interventions being taken by him and this Government to alleviate the terrible impact on families and communities. This is unacceptable. People are being bled by the same Minister and this Government for local household charges and water charges. Is it too much to ask that the Minister and Government take action and provide leadership to assist the people in this great time of need? In the immediate term, homeowners, businesses and service providers need urgent practical and financial aid from Government, outside the terms of their private insurance, if they have any, to alleviate the impact on people, for instance, cooking, washing, utilities and bedding, which need to be replaced. The Minister and the Government must also quickly quantify the broader impact caused by this devastation to local communities and our key infrastructure. Tánaiste, we heard yesterday from the Taoiseach how much has been invested in flood defences since 1996 and how much will be spent over the coming 5 years. I am aware that the EU Floods Directive compels the Government to publish what are termed detailed flood hazard and flood maps. Tánaiste, there can be no delay in these being published to inform the Government on how best to allocate resources for the future. Can you tell the House this morning whether you, as Tánaiste and Minister for Foreign Affairs, have been in direct contact with the European Commission and the Directorate General for Regional Policy through the Government's permanent representative in Brussels, Mr Declan Kelleher, or any other means to request financial aid through the EU Solidarity Fund? We know this Solidarity Fund can be mobilised in the event of an extraordinary regional disaster, as we have experienced here across the state in recent weeks.
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, I think our hearts go out to the people who have been affected by flooding over the past number of weeks. In some cases, people who have been affected more than once. It's a devastating experience for anybody to have their home flooded, and I certainly have enormous sympathy for the plight that they're in. I also want to pay tribute to the workers and volunteers on the ground whose work in this these awful weather conditions, I think, has helped to mitigate the impact of the flooding. The government has acted on this issue. We discussed it at government on Tuesday, and we're taking action on a number of fronts. Indeed, Minister of State Hayes is in Cork today as part of that exercise. In the first instance, the Department of Social Protection assists households in the aftermath of emergency events such as flooding, with urgent needs payments to cover clothing, food and emergency accommodation costs. The Department of Social Protection have funding available now in the form of a humanitarian assistance scheme to assist people whose homes are damaged by flooding and who are not in a position to meet the costs of essential needs. Local Department of Social Protection officials are engaging with the local authority and a protocol has been established with the local authority whereby they will carry out an assessment on the level of assistance required on a house-by-house basis. The National Coordination Group on Severe Weather met on Tuesday, Wednesday and again this morning to review the situation to date and to consider the ongoing threats from storms and tidal conditions as well as river flooding. The Government decided on Tuesday to make an immediate initial allocation of €15 million for emergency purposes, pending a fuller assessment of the situation over the coming days and weeks. The Defence Forces and Civil Defence have been deployed to give practical assistance as necessary. In relation to flood defences, a total of €320 million has been spent on flood defences up to 2013. And of this figure, 25 million relates to the Minor Flood Works and Coastal Protection Scheme introduced in 2009. An additional amount of approximately €50 million has been spent on other programmes, mainly the catchment flood risk assessment and management. A total of 45 million has been allocated to the OPW for flood risk management in 2014. This will enable construction to continue on 4 capital schemes, a further 6 projects to begin construction and 22 other projects to continue to be advanced towards implementation, subject to satisfactory progression through planning and design stages. The OPW will also continue to operate the Minor Flood Works and Coastal Protection Scheme, which provides funding to local authorities to allow them to carry out smaller-scale flood mitigation and coastal protection projects in their areas. Around 250 million in total is planned to be spent on flood defences over the coming 5 years. Together with the local authorities, we will have to assess whether that will be sufficient to meet future needs. Local authorities are also now required, as an integral part of their development planning process, to assess climate adaptation measures, including the risk of flooding. And at the request of Government, the Department of the Environment, Community and Local Government is currently collating more detailed reports from local authorities on the clean-up, response, repair and restoration costs. This report will be submitted to Government next Tuesday at its meeting and will include measures relating to the funding and coordination of clean-up, repair and remedial works.
Deputy McLennan.
Tánaiste, this is a state of emergency and it must be declared as so. Minister Brian Hayes is in Cork and Kerry today and tomorrow. He will be visiting Youghal in the morning, my own hometown, and I intend to meet him there. Youghal itself has been flooded 3 times already this year. While we welcome his visit, we need more than just photo ops and words of comfort. We need to hear what the government action plan is. We need to see the immediate benefits of that plan. Tánaiste, do you accept that the government's response to what is now an emergency has seemed at best lethargic, if not completely hands-off? It has taken the Minister Phil Hogan weeks to come and make a statement before this House, and the lack of coherent leadership response from him and senior ministers has been nothing short of appalling. And Tánaiste, have the community welfare officers been instructed to give immediate financial aid to families whose belongings have been destroyed?
Thank you.
Well, first of all, the Government has acted on this issue and has acted quickly on it. First of all, in a flood situation, the first thing that people need is they need immediate assistance. And that is being done through the Department of Social Protection. That is why a sum of €15 million was provided by Government this week to address that. And what is happening is that officials of the local authorities and the Department of Social Protection have been asked effectively to go house to house on this and talk with people about what is their immediate need. People who have, for example, who can't cook, people whose homes have been, the living space has been destroyed, they need immediate help, and that the Department of Social Protection, together with the local authorities, have been asked to address that on an immediate basis, and that's why the 15 million has been provided for that. The second issue then that we have to address is the longer-term situation, particularly for homes that have been affected. It may well be in some cases that there are insurance issues that are arising. That has to be addressed. And then thirdly, there is the issue of how to prevent the flooding from taking place in the first place. And that is where the investment in the flood protection schemes, and I've detailed the very significant amounts of money that have been provided and the various schemes that are in preparation to prevent flooding from taking place, or to at least to mitigate it. You also asked me about the situation with regard to an application for European Union assistance in this area. There is a fund. There's a very high, I might say, there's a very high threshold or bar, if you like, for applying for that fund, for what will actually qualify for it. That is going to form part of the consideration of the report that the Minister for the Environment will bring to Cabinet next Tuesday. What he is doing at the moment is getting an assessment from all of the local authorities about what is the scale, what is the detail of what needs to be applied for, and that will form part of the report that the Government will consider on Tuesday.
Thank you. Deputy Collins.
Thank you, Count Corley. Tánaiste, I want to raise the issue of apprentices being forced to pay college fees. These fees can range from €833 to €1,433 per year, depending on the particular apprenticeship and how much time is required in college. The Minister for Education insists on treating apprentices as students. They are not students. They cannot avail of student grants or other financial assistance available to students. They are full-time workers, and very low-paid workers at that. An apprentice beginning their first year would be paid the minimum wage, and it doesn't rise much after that. They pay income tax, they pay universal social charge and PRSI. The apprentice of today is different than that of the past. Then they left school at 15 and 16, finished apprenticeships by 21, 22. Many apprentices today are young adults with family responsibilities. 1,500 out of 7,500 apprentices nationally are unemployed. They have been made redundant, and they may have to wait a number of years to gain employment and continue their apprenticeship. In 2004, there was an attempt to make apprentices pay college fees. It was defeated by mass protest and then threat of a legal challenge to the High Court. This government has reintroduced these fees in the October budget. The electricians' trade unions, TWU and USI, have launched a campaign to axe the tax on learning. They've quite correctly pointed out this makes a mockery of the promise to provide young people with a job, work experience, apprenticeship or training under the Youth Guarantee. Lastly, I want to make the point the Minister, Rory Quinn, I'm glad he's here today in the Dáil, has to date refused to even meet with the TWU or the USI. So I'm asking you, Tánaiste, and as the leader of the Labour Party, will you give an absolute commitment with Rory Quinn here to arrange such a meeting and address the concerns and difficulties faced by these young workers, and find the resources to reinstate the payment of the college fees to these small groups of workers? It was with FOSS and it didn't transfer over to Solace.
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, first of all, I understand that the Minister for Education and Skills is planning to meet the Union of Students in Ireland about this issue, and he's making arrangements for a date for that meeting. My understanding of this issue is that there is a student registration fee which applies throughout the education system. What is applied in the case of apprentices is on a pro rata basis. I should add that, of course, the whole issue of apprenticeship is something that the Government is looking at very closely. Minister Quinn has got a report from a review which was carried out by Mr Kevin Duffy, looking at the whole area of apprenticeship, because apprenticeships and the role of apprenticeships in the modern economy is part of what we need to do in order to get people back to work, in order to ensure that our economy fully recovers. I think it's fair to say that apprenticeships are used in a much wider way in other countries than they are in this country. We have tended to have an apprenticeship system for a fairly limited range of trades in this country. There's a much wider definition and a much wider concept of apprenticeship in other European countries. And I think there are a number of things that we can probably learn from that. I think in particular, we also need to ensure that employers are open to taking on apprentices, and I think this has to be part of the whole recovery story as we move forward. We have seen, and I think we saw this even in good times, a reluctance on the part of some employers to take on apprentices. There are two parts to the apprenticeship process. There is the on-the-job training and experience which the apprentice gets. There's also the formal education part, which is in a school or a college. And that, I think, is the issue that your question particularly relates to, and the student registration charge, or the proportion of the pro rata student registration charge, which applies to that. And in respect of that issue, as I've said, the Minister for Education and Skills has indicated his willingness to meet USI about that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tánaiste. You didn't really answer, Tánaiste, you didn't answer my question. What I asked was an immediate meeting with the TWU and the USI. Now, up to date, we were talking to both yesterday afternoon, and they have had no indication there's going to be a meeting organised, so maybe that can be clarified with them as quick as possible. And I think the important thing is that these institutions weren't even approached before the October budget to say, listen, this is what we're thinking of doing. And we're discussing about putting in place another possibility to fund students through their apprentices over the next period of time. It was just asked with no discussion and no debate, according to the TWU and the USI. Now, Tánaiste, I could make a real political play on this, but I'm not, because the issue is too serious. There's a campaign been set up that is also backed by your European candidate for the Leinster region. So I'm asking this to be dealt with immediately, resources found immediately. FOSC were supplying this money before, Solid should supply it now, and that should be reinstated immediately and sorted out.
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, I think one of the things we have to bear in mind here is that apprentices do continue to be paid while they are in the education part of their apprenticeship. The estimate that I have is that the levels of pay can range from between about €300 a week and €700 a week, depending on the particular apprenticeship. So I think it's not unreasonable that where there is a student charge, that those who are part of the education system and are getting paid contribute to that student charge. In some cases, there are students who are not getting paid and who have to contribute to that student charge. Now, as I said, the Minister, and your question was if the Minister for Education would meet with USI to discuss the issue, and as I've said to you, he is willing to do that, and he intends to do that. But I've also said that we do need to look, and the Minister for Education is looking at the whole apprenticeship issue in a much wider way, because we can use apprenticeships in a much more creative way and a much more wider way in the economy to get people back into employment, to get appropriate training, and to ensure that they're equipped for work. We've had a system of apprenticeships in this country which has been far too confined, far too limited, in some cases for periods of time that are too long, and that is an issue that is now being addressed by the Minister for Education.
Thank you. That completes leaders' questions for today.